Ron Suskind alleging the Bush White House ignored an offer from Iran to help crack al-Qaeda and possibly get Osama bin Laden himself. CNN's Brian Todd is working the story for us. What are we learning, Brian?
Wolf, a number of incendiary claims in this book, and one of the ones that we found most fascinating, this report that Wolf just mentioned, an incredible offer from the Iranians to the United States not long after 9/11. A startling post-9/11 overture from a bitter American enemy. They'd grill al-Qaeda leaders, maybe even get them to give up Osama bin Laden. In his new book, The Way of the World, Ron Suskind writes that Iran made that offer just before the Iraq War. After senior al-Qaeda leaders had fled to Iran, Suskind writes the Iranians, quote, were ready to start subtly working al-Qaeda's exiled managers and maybe even use them to get to bin Laden. Suskind writes the Bush administration never responded, and when a senior intelligence official asked President Bush why not, Suskind quotes the official saying, he just looked at me with this funny blank stare. A White House spokesman didn't respond directly to that, but the White House has refuted many of the book's other claims. An Iranian official at the UN says he knows of no such overture. In an interview with NBC's Today Show, Suskind defended his sources.
There were off-the-record sources who laid out the story, and then I went to people actually involved.
Suskind writes in detail about what he says was a chilling phone call between Pakistani President Pervez Musharraf and former Prime Minister Benazir Bhutto. September 2007, 2 months before Bhutto's assassination. Musharraf, according to Suskind, says, you should understand something. Your security is based on the state of our relationship. A senior Bhutto advisor who was with her right before and after that call tells CNN he can't confirm the quote, but says Bhutto was very upset afterward. The advisor says Bhutto said Musharraf's attitude toward her had changed, that he was confrontational and hostile. I also spoke with a senior advisor to the Pakistani government today. He said he knows Musharraf well. He knew Benazir Bhutto, and he says he doubts Musharraf said that. We also doubled back with the White House on the claim about the Iranians making that overture. One of the White House officials said, quote, it's not my job to be Ron Suskind's fact checker. That would be a full-time job. Another fascinating claim by Suskind in the book that the U.S. has developed only 3 spies inside al-Qaeda. One of them, he says, was codenamed Lovebug, who was a Kurd associated with the now-deceased leader of leader of al-Qaeda in Iraq, Abu Musab al-Zarqawi. Suskind writes that Lovebug gave very valuable intelligence to the U.S. before he was killed in early 2004. A former CIA official wouldn't comment on the specifics. The current CIA spokesman says overall about this book, if jumping to conclusions were an Olympic sport, Ron Suskind would be in Beijing now. Well,
they're trying. The White House, the CIA, all sorts of elements of the government are pushing back really hard. Suskind has a fascinating section in the book on the Jordanian King Abdullah.
That's right. He essentially says that at the time of Abdullah's ascension to the throne in the late 90s...
From his father, King Hussein.
That's right. That there was one CIA agent, according to Suskind, Robert Richer, who essentially worked the Jordanians, the inner workings of the government, and paved the way for King Abdullah to ascend to the throne. I called Robert Richer today. He said he would not comment on that. We also spoke to the Jordanian embassy. They said that's not true. They said if you know the Jordanian government, the way it works and the Constitution, the king decides that, and that's all there is to that.
And that's what the king wanted. He wanted Abdullah to succeed him,
right.
And he did. That was one of his last wishes before he died. All right, thanks very much, Brian, for that. By the way, we're going to get a lot more on these explosive allegations tomorrow when the author Ron Suskind will be here in the Situation Room. We'll discuss his book. He'll defend what he has written.